Hello, I'm Craig Brelsford, and welcome to another episode of Small Stocks, Big Money. For those of you new to the show, RedChip is an investor relations, media, and research firm focused on emerging growth companies. Our unique platform combines global multimedia with traditional investor relations, reaching investors around the world. Now, today's show features interviews with executives of two public companies. First up is BioVie. BioVie represents a unique late clinical stage investment opportunity at the convergence of neurodegeneration, longevity science, and liver disease. The company's lead asset, bezisterim, or NE3107, is a first-in-class, orally bioavailable small molecule that addresses two fundamental drivers of aging and neurodegeneration: TNF-alpha-mediated inflammation and insulin resistance. We'll learn more when we speak with the CEO later in the show. Up next is 60 Degrees Pharmaceuticals. 60 Degrees Pharmaceuticals is a growth-oriented biotechnology company developing new therapies for vector-borne diseases. The company markets the FDA-approved anti-malarial Aerocoda, or tafenoquine, and is advancing tafenoquine into new indications, among them babesiosis, a tick-borne infection with no approved treatments. We'll learn more when we speak with the CEO later in the show. Before we move forward, let's take a look at RedChat, a revolutionary AI chatbot for small-cap stock analysis.
A new era of small-cap research has arrived with RedChip's RedChat, the fastest, most accurate AI assistant for small caps. The days of spending hours sifting through press releases, 10Ks, 10Qs, 8Ks, 13Fs, 13Gs, and other filings is over. Now, get answers in seconds on 4,000 small-cap stocks in one portal. Simple, fast, accurate, detailed answers. Meet small caps with RedChat.
Now let's move on to our quote of the week. It comes from the book, Small Stocks, Big Money. Work hard, be a long-term thinker, develop tenacity, and remember, nothing happens without taking calculated risks. This quote comes from Phil Sassower of the Phoenix Group and is featured in Chapter 9 of Small Stocks, Big Money, a book of exclusive interviews with some of the biggest players in the microcap space. Get a digital copy on Amazon today for just $18. Now, let's get started with our first interview today with BioVie. Hello, today we have Cuong Do, the president and CEO of BioVie, which trades on the NASDAQ under the ticker symbol BIVI. Cuong, welcome back.
Great. Thank you so much for having me back. It's a pleasure.
For investors who may be completely new to BioVie, Cuong, let's start with a brief overview of the company.
Well, BioVie is a biotech company that works some of the biggest unmet medical needs out there. We have two drug candidates. Bezisterim is currently in the clinic for Parkinson's, long COVID, and will be soon, hopefully, for Alzheimer's. And BIV201 will hopefully start soon in ascites.
Cuong, you just mentioned bezisterim, your lead asset. It targets TNF-alpha-mediated chronic inflammation. Why is this mechanism so central across multiple neurodegenerative and systemic diseases?
Well, we believe that inflammation is the starting point for many things to start to go wrong in the body. So when you have the production of TNF-alpha, it just leads to a forward-feeding cascade that just makes more TNF-alpha, but also triggers a lot of downstream negative consequences that happens from having TNF-alpha around. And it turns out that bezisterim blocks the production of TNF-alpha at just the right place and the right time. Therefore, it prevents the future creation of more inflammation, and it prevents the downstream negative consequences that happens by having TNF-alpha around.
Parkinson's, it's currently BioVie's most advanced near-term catalyst. What should investors understand about the significance of the upcoming Phase 2b top-line data expected in the second quarter of 2026?
But the context for Parkinson's is that in a prior phase 2 trial, we showed that you can use bezisterim in combination with the current standard of care, which is levodopa, to help moderate and severe Parkinson's patients improve their muscle control. Thereby, we established the first half of what we're going to do in Parkinson's. The current trial is trying to establish the second half, which is you can use bezisterim alone to help Parkinson's patients at an earlier stage of their disease control their disease. And we're hoping to show that we can modify the progression of the disease and slow the progression of the disease. We have fully enrolled the trial with 60 patients, and we hope to have top-line data readout from this trial in the May or June timeframe of this year.
Long COVID. It affects millions of people today, and there are no approved therapies. Why did BioVie see long COVID as a compelling opportunity for bezisterim? And can you explain how the drug's anti inflammatory and neuroprotective mechanisms align with what we're learning about long COVID pathology?
To be perfectly honest, we had no clue of what was going on with long COVID. We did not look at it. Were not studying it until some of our experts pointed out to us that long COVID symptoms of brain fog, extreme malaise, and fatigue are all driven by inflammation that works through exactly the same mechanisms that bezisterim affects. And they also pointed out to us that there is a grant program that would support the exploration of something like this. So we applied for a grant and we received a $13 million grant to fully fund an exploratory phase 2 trial to see if bezisterim could help with address the brain fog, malaise, and fatigue symptoms of long COVID. We are rapidly enrolling that trial right now. Some of the largest academic medical centers and long COVID sites around the country are working with us. We expect that trial to be fully enrolled by the end of March and to have top-line data readout by this summer.
Kong, it is no exaggeration to say that Alzheimer's has been a very difficult space for drug development. How does BioVie's inflammation-centric approach differ from amyloid-only strategies?
Well, the entire industry focused on amyloid and tau literally for decades. But over those same decades, there's never been a single drug discovered that can reduce tangles and plaques and reverse or arrest the cognitive decline associated with Alzheimer's. And within the last decade or so, more and more clinicians and researchers are understanding that amyloid plaques and tau tangles are inflammatory in nature. They cause inflammation, but many other factors cause inflammation as well. And they all share one thing in common. They cause the activation of ERK and leads to the creation of TNF alpha. And of course, that's where bezisterim comes in. We do not care really where the inflammatory stimuli comes from because we block them all, because we block them at the central node right before the production of TNF alpha. And that's why we believe bezisterim has a much better chance of working than many of the other drugs. And in fact, our prior clinical trials have shown that bezisterim treated patients experience a 68% slowing of cognitive time after just 6 months of treatment compared to those that were on placebo. And we look forward to confirming those studies in the future trials.
Let's turn now to ascites, a liver condition with extremely high mortality and no approved pharmacological treatments. Your asset, BIV 201, is attacking it. How does the FDA alignment on the phase 3 design de-risk the regulatory pathway for BIV 201?
Ascites is a terrible end-stage liver disease condition. By this point, the liver has gotten so damaged it's not able to process fluid the way it normally does. So fluid accumulates in a person's abdomen, right? And the only treatment approach right now is to go in with a large needle and physically remove all that fluid. And since nothing has been done to address why the fluid accumulates in the first place, that these patients are back in the hospital every week or two to get another 5 to 10 liters of fluid removed, right? And so that's just terrible for the body. And frankly, the only treatment objective at this point is to try to keep the patient alive long enough so that they may qualify for a liver transplant. Right? And since there are not enough livers to go around, there's a 50+ mortality rate within 12 months for these patients. Now, our drug candidate BIV 201 works on a completely different mechanism and could become the first therapy for ascites. We terminated a phase 2 trial early because halfway through the trial, we'd already received enough data to show that patients treated with BIV 201 reduced 50% of their ascites fluid buildup. So we stopped the trial. We engaged the FDA in a conversation on what it will take to get the drug registered. And as of now, we have received all the feedback we need from the FDA. There's complete alignment on the trial that needs to be conducted and how to get it registered. And since we only need one trial because we already received orphan and fast track designation for this drug.
Now, Kong, you've got multiple late stage programs simultaneously operating as we've been talking about here, but you've also got a very experienced leadership team that's helping you execute it. Let us know about them.
Well, literally every single member of our senior leadership team has decades of experience developing drugs. Right. And collectively, we have worked on a lot of drugs and have gotten them approved. So we have a very experienced team to shepherd and lead through these programs. So I have great confidence in this team.
Final question, Kong. What is the essential value proposition? Why should investors take an interest in BioVie right now?
I believe BioVie has one of the most exciting portfolio in biotech right now, and we represent a terrific investment opportunity for those who have a 12-month planning horizon. Over the course of the next 6 months, we have multiple catalysts that are expected. Our Parkinson's trial will read out in the May or June timeframe. And when that is fully developed, we believe that could become the first new therapy in Parkinson's in over 5 decades. And that represents a $3 to $5 billion annual sales opportunity in the US alone. Our second trial is long COVID that is expected to read out this summer, right? And this could become the first therapy for long COVID patients. And the annual sales opportunity for in the US alone could even be greater than that, right? So we have a terrific portfolio, multiple drugs, multiple shots on goals, and more importantly, multiple short-term catalysts. And anytime you want to risk adjust and adjust the numbers here, it will lead you to a valuation that is substantially higher than our current market cap. So that's why I believe the catalyst will provide a correction in the market for a market cap and represents a terrific opportunity for investors.
It's looking as if 2026 is going to be a very exciting year for your company, Kong. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me back.
Now, to get more information on BioVie, visit biviinfo.com. You'll see research reports, fact sheets, presentations, and the latest videos. It's all free, and you can even subscribe to email alerts to stay on top of the latest news. You can also call 1-800-RedChip to speak to a specialist if you have any questions. We also have a free weekly newsletter you can subscribe to at redchip.com, featuring emerging growth companies like BioVie. Watch this show again and explore hundreds of small-cap stock videos on RedChip's YouTube channel. Also, go to our website and sign up on our events page for the webinar series. We have webinars every week, several a week, in which we feature small public companies, mostly our client companies, and you'll hear straight from the CEO, and you'll be able to ask questions after that. Again, visit redchip.com and subscribe today. In addition to our newsletter, you can also order your copy of Small Stocks, Big Money, a book written by RedChip's CEO, featuring interviews with some of the biggest players in the microcap space. Order your copy on Amazon today for just $18. Now, let's move on to our next interview today with 60 Degrees Pharmaceuticals. Hello, today we have the pleasure of welcoming back Jeff Dow, the CEO, President, and Director of 60 Degrees Pharma. Jeff, hello again.
Hey, Craig, it's great to see you again.
For those investors who may be discovering this company for the first time, Jeff, how would you describe what 60 Degrees Pharmaceuticals does today, and why is its focus on vector-borne diseases creating a compelling long-term opportunity?
Well, of course, vector-borne diseases can be acute. You get really sick like the flu, but that they can trigger these really long-term nasty conditions, and there's no FDA-approved treatments to manage them. So we see an opportunity there to address short and long-term needs, and no other pharma companies really in the space doing it.
Arakota, it's FDA approved, commercially available, and differentiated with weekly dosing and activity across all malaria life cycle stages, Jeff. You've recently announced partnerships with GoodRx and a travel focused telehealth channel. You've also outlined plans to expand the inside sales team and increase digital marketing in 2026. How should investors think about the revenue impact of these initiatives?
Well, Craig, you nicely outlined the product profile of Aricoda in your introduction. The problem is that people don't know about it yet. So part of the initiative you described with GoodRx is to capitalize on their universal brand recognition to put the message out about Aricoda. And of course, telehealth and online platforms are kind of the trend in the way that pharma companies are interacting with patients directly. And our partner, Runway Health, is the first entrant into this field in travel medicine. And so we're exploring with them what that novel channel might mean for this particular business. And then, of course, finally, from the 2025 pilot, we know that our reps can increase sales of or prescriptions of Aricoda where there's good brand awareness. And so that's why we're increasing the headcount in 2026.
Babesiosis. It's a name maybe a lot of people won't immediately recognize. It is, however, a growing tick-borne disease with no FDA-approved treatments today. However, I remember you teaching us that babesiosis in many chemical ways looks like malaria. You can maybe elaborate on that. You've got tafenoquine, you've got Aricoda, which is tafenoquine. How does tafenoquine have the potential to become the first in class therapy for babesiosis?
So, of course, babesiosis has an acute disease form, which is very like malaria. It causes the same sort of symptoms. It invades red blood cells, and so it causes anemia like malaria does. But unlike malaria, babesiosis is triggered or perhaps can be associated with a long-term, more chronic disease, a little bit like Lyme disease or long COVID. And that particular manifestation of the disease uh, has been poorly studied, and there are no available therapeutics to treat it. Aricoda, we know from the scientific literature, kills Babesia organisms. We know from case studies that in relapsing disease, that it provides clinical benefit in a small case series. And we know that it's weekly dosed and well studied in terms of safety for up to 12 months. And so that unique combination of features would be ideal to treat a chronic form of babesiosis. And that's what we hope to be going after with the clinical trials that we're doing.
Now, among tick-borne diseases, babesiosis may not be as infamous as Lyme disease, but it is big. Your management team has estimated that there are up to 380,000 addressable patients in the United States annually and up to $245 million in potential peak sales. How does that market, the babesiosis market, compare to your current malaria business?
So 10 years from now at peak sales, we think it could be at least 3 or 4 times bigger than the malaria business. And I just reinforced that that set of numbers you quoted was our initial estimate, and it'll get refined over time as we get more information about the market and the willingness to pay and prescribe over time.
Now, you're different from small biotechs in many ways, and one of them is the way you've emphasized capital efficiency, Jeff. You've leveraged an existing commercial infrastructure. You've got an FDA approved drug right now to support pipeline expansion, your imaginative attempt into babesiosis. Very impressive. Now, how does that strategy preserve shareholder value?
So I guess the first thing is we're revenue generating. And so there's a timeline between now and when we get to commercial profitability with our existing indication. And of course, that's great for investors because now we don't have to dilute the shareholder base anymore to raise capital because we have to. And the other thing it is advantageous for is that it kind of locks you into a narrower strategy to expand the therapeutic case because it makes sense to capitalize on the existing known information, which is primarily around the dosing regimen safety. So we have chosen to target new indications where that existing chemical and manufacturing process, the dosing regimen, the safety, all line up to minimize cost and risk.
What milestones should investors be expecting in the next year or year and a half?
So, of course, we have 3 babesiosis clinical trials which are underway at the moment. We should see data for one of those trials come out in the second half of the year. And then that, together with the supporting data from the other trials, will enable us to craft a regulatory strategy moving forward. Of course, that could go in many different directions. So we haven't been too public about what strategy we think makes sense. We hope to provide more information about that towards the end of the year. And then, of course, the other piece is we are revenue generating. We're doing some innovative things, like you mentioned, with Runway Health and GoodRx to try and expand sales for malaria. And those efforts should start to yield some data points and trends towards the end of the year, which we can communicate with investors.
All right, Jeff, speak directly to our viewers here. Tell them, what is the essential value proposition? Why should anyone take an interest in 60 Degrees Pharma right now?
You know, it's kind of frustrating, right? We've got a very small market valuation, but we have an FDA-approved product that's very close to being in a position to go to the FDA again to expand the label. We are generating revenue. We've got levers to pull to get to profitability. So what are investors waiting for? And that's my message to new folks who haven't interacted with the company before.
Expanding that label from just malaria to malaria and babesiosis. Best wishes on that, Jeff, and great as always to see you.
Awesome. Thanks for the encouragement and see you next time.
Now, to get more information on 60 Degrees Pharmaceuticals, visit SXTPinfo.com. You'll see research reports, fact sheets, presentations, and the latest videos. It's all free, and you can even subscribe to email alerts to stay on top of the latest news. You can also call 1-800-RedChip to speak to a specialist if you have any questions. We also have a free weekly newsletter you can subscribe to at redchip.com, featuring emerging growth companies like 60 Degrees Pharmaceuticals. Watch this show again and explore hundreds of small-cap stock videos on RedChip's YouTube channel. And also go to our website and sign up on our events page for the webinar series. We have webinars every week, several a week, in which we feature small public companies, mostly our client companies. And you'll hear straight from the CEO, and you'll be able to ask questions after that. Again, visit redchip.com and subscribe today. In addition to our newsletter, you can also order your copy of Small Stocks, Big Money, a book written by RedChip's CEO, featuring interviews with some of the biggest players in the microcap space. Order your copy on Amazon today for just $18. Now, let's recap the companies we featured today. First, you met BioVie, BIVI on the NASDAQ. BioVie represents a unique late clinical stage investment opportunity at the convergence of neurodegeneration, longevity science, and liver disease. The company's lead asset, bezisterim, NE3107, is a first-in-class, orally bioavailable small molecule that addresses 2 fundamental drivers of aging and neurodegeneration: TNF-alpha-mediated inflammation and insulin resistance. Learn more at biviinfo.com. Then you met 60 Degrees Pharmaceuticals, SXTP, on the NASDAQ. 60 Degrees Pharmaceuticals is a growth-oriented biotechnology company developing new therapies for vector-borne diseases. The company markets the FDA-approved anti-malarial Arakota, or tafenoquine, and is advancing tafenoquine into new indications, among them babesiosis, a tick-borne infection with no approved treatments. Learn more at sxtpinfo.com. Don't forget to check out our stocks page. It is the biggest small-cap stock portal in the industry. It has every company listed on the NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange with market caps of $2 billion and less. And it's categorized by industry. Watch this show again and explore hundreds of small-cap stock videos on RedChip's YouTube channel, and be sure to sign up for our weekly newsletter and learn about a lot of small-cap companies. Also, go to our website and sign up on our events page for the webinar series. We have webinars every week, several a week, in which we feature small public companies, mostly our client companies, and you'll hear straight from the CEO, and you'll be able to ask questions after that. Again, if you have any questions about any of our public companies featured on today's show, call us at 1-800-RedChip or email us at info@redchip.com. In closing, remember, while small caps can provide significant gains, you must be prepared for the downside. Small cap stocks are among the most volatile of asset classes. Some of the companies featured on this show are RedChip client companies, and we may own stock in these companies. So please, always read our disclosures at redchip.com. Thanks for being with us today. We'll see you next week with some new, exciting, emerging growth companies.